party in charge of all parts of the country. Secondly, no longer is the ruling party in charge of all the local authorities as they have been. And it's important also to recognize that the ruling party no longer has almost 100% control over the National Council. For the first time, one of the important elements of building what we have called a system as LPM is beginning to be complete. We are now a party that can be recognized as a system that is ready to govern. We are represented in the National Council. We are represented in the National Assembly. We are represented at the regional level. We are represented at the local level. Very few political parties in the history of this country can claim such accolades, and this really is a demonstration of the consistency of the work that we have done. It's a demonstration of the applicability of our message and the shared values and vision that we communicate to our constituents all over the country. It is indeed a testimony that what is old must retire and the new must be born, and the birth of the new can no longer be held back by the dinosaurs that are irrelevant to our common existence today. We therefore have a confidence in ourselves, because that confidence has been instilled upon us by the electorate, that we're able to take the message further of a new, united country based on the premises of development, democracy, freedoms, justice, social justice, equality for all, and a country that is a constitutional democracy in the true sense of the word. We still have a long way to go, but the beginning signs are looking quite impressive. Independent candidates, in particular in the Zambezi region, that have stood very firm and took 4 constituencies away from the ruling regime. We hold our hands of friendship and solidarity and unity with these candidates, and we hope to work together with these candidates in the Zambezi region to rebuild that region as an important bastion of economic and political freedom, and ensure that the people of Zambezi have their voices heard, have their concerns heard at the national level, and are truly made to feel that they are part of this nation. We should of course also thank and commend SWAPO's up-to-the-minute, bizarre and ludicrous leadership, which has used every opportunity to shoot itself in the foot, embarrass itself and fall over itself as it was trying to save a party that has long disintegrated into a congress of clowns who have shown their colors by promoting elitism, racism, tribalism, nepotism, and every other regressivism that has almost brought this country to its knees. The results of these elections are a reflection and a hangover of the 2019 national elections, as we have seen how the popularity of the ruling party has dwindled. Along with the dwindling of the numbers of the ruling party has been the dwindling of another political party that artificially gained prominence as the second largest party in the National Assembly, but could not garner sufficient votes in the local level during the 2020 elections. But we are statesmen and women. Today is not about who did not do good and who really failed to garner votes. Today is about us thanking our people and setting ourselves on the pace toward implementing the things that we have said are the goals that we must implement to change the lives and the livelihoods of the discontented masses and people of Namibia who have punished all other political parties at the ballot box. Today it is clear that there is no more such a place for meet us at the ballot box attitude that SWAPO leaders portrayed for long, taking it for granted that they would rule until, as they say, Jesus Christ comes. The numbers must have opened their eyes, and the 30-year failure has been seen by the people of this country. A party that has taken the trust of the Namibians for granted has become an old lady that has fallen with the pigeons having flown away, never, 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 never to rebirth itself again. Indeed, the numbers have found that the alternative party is the way to go, that LPM is the future, that is forming a present in collecting every progressive force on the bandwagon of change, development, freedom, justice, and the restoration of the dignity of all our people. We now today have to address the questions of poverty, landlessness, homelessness, hopelessness, and we have to work within the context of scarce resources, but also resources stolen to the extreme, and also over and above the theft of resources, a lazy, incompetent bureaucracy, both at local and regional level, with which we now have to do the things that we've said we will do. So, to the Namibians out there who voted for us, we thank you and publicly say that we'll do every possible act necessary to ensure that your votes have meaning, that your votes have value, and that your votes will be respected. We're a party of the people, for the people, by the people, in the people, and among the people, and therefore, at regional and local level, there will be greater consultation at every decision-making processes that require the input of people. At regional and local level, there will have to be major revamp of those that are in structures that have become archaic and that are non-representative of the wishes of the people, and this includes administrators that we must essentially replace with new, vibrant, innovative, hard-working, focused, and goal-oriented individuals. We have to reform cities like Windhoek. We have to reallocate resources. We have to ensure that places like Swakopmund, like Wolfish Bay, Keetmans, places like Gobabis, Korigas, Ocho, are representative of the wishes of the people. Budgets must be realigned to ensure that homelessness and landlessness and service delivery and all these other things must be dealt with. There are costs that will have to be looked at whether they are legitimate. For instance, if it is correct that Swakopmund spends 20 million on legal services, that has to be corrected. We have to go for land audits. We have to go for human resource audits. We have to go for financial audits so that we are able within the first 6 months to create a proper understanding of the internal operations of not only the finances, the administration, but also of the capacity that regional and local authorities have to deliver on the goodies for the people of Namibia. We'll have to look at remunicipalization of many of the services that have been outsourced over the years. We have to rebuild the internal capacity of the local authorities to provide services to the people at a lower cost than outsourcing has afforded over the year. And therefore, our work is mammoth. In order to do this, we will be conducting a major induction workshop for those councillors at regional local level that will be sworn in by Wednesday, so that we already put them on the right path toward ensuring that their work starts in December, not in January, and that they must start to look at urgent low-hanging fruits that we can capitalize on. This includes the question of old age homes, the debt indebtedness of old age customers, elderly customers rather, the question of water and the water bills, the question of electricity bills. We'll have to engage with institutions such as NamPower that are irrationally super powerful and that are irresponsive to the needs of the people. We'll have to urgently look at ways in which renewable energy resources can be brought to bear to reduce costs on the domestic economy, the household economy. We'll have to look at what local authorities can do on the question of street kids. We'll have to look at what local authorities can do on the welfare of the elderly and the disabled. We'll have to look and urgently work to ensure that twinning agreements are brought to bear and that we are able to generate sufficient resources from outside through partnerships with the international community to help us to implement the vision of a better Namibia as soon as possible. We have the mandate to govern. We did not come through the back door. We have been voted by the people. The people have said that our ideas are the supreme ideas, and therefore we will now want every institution in the administration of the state affairs to resist the temptation to want to politicize an administrative relationship and try to use parastatals as a political vehicle to sabotage and subvert the wishes of the people. Whether they are NamPower or NamPort or any other institution, NamWater or any of those ones, I call upon them to work with us in the regions and the local authorities that we have conquered. We also call upon the central government to grow in this democracy and recognize that trying to withhold resources from the areas that we have conquered politically is not the way to go. If they want a fight on that score, we are ready to fight them. But if their hands are held out to work with us in the interests of the totality of the people of this country, we are there to meet them in an extraordinary way. We are also stating without any fear of contradiction that we stand ready to work with any and all political parties, including SWAPO, in order to serve the interests of our people as real political leaders of a country whose citizens require politicians to be grown-up boys and girls instead of little boys and girls who cry over an election whose time is over. This is the moment for leadership. This is the moment to govern. This is the moment to start to move to a delivery of services, and politics must now become redundant. In the 5th year, we can now start campaigning and politicking. Not now. From now to 2025, let's deliver together for the people of this country a new day, a new hope. The task of building a better Namibia moves on. And if, as leaders, we are smart, we will recognize that we will rise or fall as a nation, as one people. We have to choose whether we will rise or whether we will fall. Every Namibian who took part in this election, we thank them for standing up, whichever political party they voted for, to add their voice to this great movement forward. Wherever we won, we are not going to govern for one component only. We are elected to serve each and every Namibian, and your interests, regardless of party affiliation, will indeed be our interest as well. On that note, I stop here and we can engage on the matters.
Oh, thanks for the good address. Now, as I said, we are going to take questions from the media. Kelvin is one, there's Emil Seipe. I hope he's not my family. And then we have Okoto Craig and Jemima and my sister here. You can just roll.
Thank you so much. My name is Kevin. I report for AV11. I've got 2 questions to begin with, just so that others can also have an opportunity. How do you intend to deal with the fiscal consolidation climate within which we are in, and the fact that our economy has so much been decimated by COVID-19 and our cash flows are so much constrained, and in the pursuit towards delivery, don't you see yourself starting at a very low base? How are you going to approach that? And secondly, where the opposition have a majority combined, for example, taking a look at the single window against the SWAPO party, how do you respond to this question that the ruling SWAPO party, although weak in numbers, with a combined opposition majority, might have an upper hand, or actually has an upper hand, when it comes to the final say of the existence of these councils, because the Urban and Rural Development Minister has got the power. The Local Authorities Act gives him the power to dissolve the council if he so deems it necessary. Are you thinking of approaching that provision in the Local Authorities Act for amendment? And how do you intend to diplomatically entangle yourself with the minister with such a power?
All right. There was.
I'm Emil Seipe from the NBC. There is word from the south that there is already threats of court cases, as there is a misunderstanding within the LPM. A certain Kuhlman was supposed to be number 5 on the list and was replaced
Number 4.
And was replaced with someone that was number 12 when a candidate or a party member withdrew from the list. And this morning we understand that there is unhappiness, there is division, and that there are threats of a court case to be lodged or has been lodged I want to confirm if this is true, and why was this then, why did the party then decide to move up this candidate from position number 12 to number 4, while there were people before him? So I just need a confirmation if these allegations are true, and why then, if it is true, this was decided on.
Yes, yes. Tom.
Talking about low-hanging fruit, the landless people, the Germanian in particular, are scattered across corridors in the Bantu rural that is now ruled by LPM. What is the party planning to do with these people to solve that situation in the short term? And then the informal settlers in Bantu in particular, people that grab land, how are you going to deal with this? As opposed to how it has been dealt with by the SWAPO government in the past.
Yes, yes.
Can we respond first? Yeah, well, I think, Emil, those are more or less internal things. We have not heard anything about court cases and so on. It's just some misunderstanding that occurred in terms of the numbering of others, but we've already been dealing with that question. There is no division within LPM. If it was there, we're going to tell you what it was. But it seems that the ECN used an old list to gazette an old list, and we have since moved the person that you speak about, Mr. Kuhlman, and surely he will be in the local authority. That much is so. There's just no crisis. Maybe you want to see a crisis at a moment where we want to move on to govern, but there's no crisis. But I think it's something urgent that you wanted to perhaps hear, that there's no crisis there. The question of Jemima, I think we recognize that we won one of the most difficult constituencies that could be won, which is Khomas rural. And precisely the issues that you have raised are the issues that will consume us in terms of solving the question, both temporarily and in the long term, for the communities of Khomas rural, of Windhoek rural. The councillor was here. This weekend we're already going to be meeting with some of the landowners. Bishop Katenda, is that you? It's a very progressive bishop.
You missed praying.
We were supposed to open with a prayer, but
yes, there's no fight.
Yeah, but the Spirit is here with us, Bishop. Yes. Welcome, Bishop. He prays for us a lot. We appreciate him. So clearly that's a matter that we'll have to deal with in terms of people roaming around in corridors. That's an urgent thing. That's something that has to be dealt with right away. There are areas such as Dordabas that we need to acquire land, and we'll need to the cooperation not only of the central government but also of the owners of land in the Dordabas area and so on, so that, for instance, we can upscale Dordabas to a settlement, expand the land to by at least 1,000 to 2,000 hectares of land and so on and so on. But I cannot go into details. We are developing a plan for Dordabas and for all other constituencies that will be a plan that we can implement in ways that are tangible for people. There are areas such as Stenvater that have major water problems where boreholes are very limited. You have 800 people living in that area, on that farm. You've got to see what you do to bring about services such as sanitation and potable water to this community. So it's a whole host of things that we've got to do. The challenge of that constituency is part of it is in an urban area, Groote, of being part of the city, and another part in extreme rural area. So we have to have a double-barrel plan to that. So it's important. Informal settlements, one of the key things, Jemima, that we will not be doing is that we will not be sending bulldozers to demolish shacks and houses of people. That is one. We are not going to leave pregnant women and mothers of little kids homeless and landless and so on. Remember, here in Windhoek, it's likely to be a coalition government. I hope that this campaign that people put around that X will be mayor and therefore that's the important thing, that's not how we approach politics. We approach any coalition discussion on the principles of values that we collectively agree on. Secondly, we approach coalitions on the basis of a political and economic program that we must have ranking of the issues of priority. Land audits are important for us. Human resource audits are important for us. Financial audits are important for us. These are important things to wash first the linen that we find are creating a toxic smell within places like Windhoek. Once we have washed this linen and we have hanged them up, we will be able to have sufficient space to engage on many other issues. But as you have noticed throughout our campaign, we support actually land grabs for people who have been deprived land. We support it. And it sounds like a reckless statement to make, but we support land grabs because 1884 was the biggest land grab the world has ever seen. And today we are not going to have people simply denied land because they cannot afford it. But more than the rhetoric in governance now, we have always said, subsequent to what we have said in respect of supporting urban and informal settlement reform, free plots for our people that are in the lower categories of income, the Presidential High-Level Commission actually agreed with us in respect of free urban land. We will have to pursue it. And herein is required a realignment of budgets, an auditing of whether perhaps the HR component of the city is not ballooned and so on. But we are likely to be in a coalition. It may also be that we may not be in a coalition. We may end up agreeing issue by issue with any political party if coalition talks fail. Coalitions are very difficult to manage because over and above egos that people have, you've got to agree on the substance of matters. But there are certain no compromise areas that we have. There are other areas that we have as compromise areas. We do not, in talking about coalitions, go in any coalition as a little child that wants to be given a sweet. We go into any coalition talks, and once a coalition agreement is reached, it means we must govern, and govern seriously. Who gets mayoral positions and who gets chairperson, these are secondary issues. The agenda must be agreed upon. Once that agenda is agreed upon, we will then deal and have a firm handle on the matters that you're asking in formal settlement. So that, I think, I've gone into a little bit of another area that you did not ask, but I think it got you some idea. The question that Kelvin asked, I mean, I've always wondered whether that provision is actually constitutional, where an appointed minister can dissolve an elected body by virtue of an act of parliament that was made for the purposes of perhaps executing a control function upon local and regional councils. But it is what it is. I think there is need for an interpretation of what that means. If in an ordinary debate, in an ordinary channeling of the issues, if the ruling party that controls the central government, if they now decide to irrationally begin to impose a whip on cities and local authorities, that clearly would be constructed as an irrational use of law for issues that can be sorted out. But I think it's one of the important agenda items that we must look at, the reform of the Local Authorities Act, because there are other areas of the Local Authority Act that must be reformed. One of it is a greater authority to local and regional authorities so that they're able to make decisions on issues of land, on issues of staffing, for instance, and that you are able to give the voice of the people more prominence. There is this provision, for instance, that appointment of a CEO must be done in consultation with the minister. I find it completely irrational. You've got to let go of that and give that authority completely to elected officials at a regional or local level. But there's a whole host of issues in the legal framework that we'll have to look at that needs to be addressed. You are coming to a very, very difficult question that affects all of us as a country, and that is the question of fiscal consolidation. We will certainly have to engage the Minister of Finance to understand fully how they perceive the financial situation of the country. We have a very good clue as to what is going on. You have, in a few days before Parliament closed, heard that they want a loan of 40 billion. And so you are correct to say that whatever we plan to do will be within the crafted space of the resources available. But that is one approach, that you can generate resources from the state. And important also to note that we'll have to have a just allocation of the resources of state. For instance, Oshakati Town Council gets 90 million for infrastructure development. Keetmans gets 5 million, not even 10%. That type of allocation will have to be readjusted, taking into consideration the overall size of the economy within which places find themselves, so that you are able to navigate a just access of all citizens to the resources of the totality of the Republic. It's important, a question, because it gets to the point, philosophically and politically, how certain constituents are consolidated to keep on voting for the ruling elite, and why others have expressed themselves angrily, precisely because of the starvation of national resources as compared to the over-blossoming of those resources in other constituencies. It's an important question. Mind you, in Nigeria, this is what led to a major conflict until the Nigerian government, the federal government, had to sit down and engage the people of Ogoni land, where the oil came from that community. Through pipes, it went to other areas, creating wealth in those areas. And then when Ken Saro-Wiwa started talking, they killed him. A revolt started, and that revolt led to major destruction of oil supplies and impacted the Nigerian economy. I am warning very kindly whoever idiot may think that they can try to starve any region, because that region is not under the voting bloc of SWAPO, to attempt that type of nonsense. It is not what a unitary state is designed to be. If they do that type of thing, then we must agree to rewrite the constitution, to start a federal system in which all of the federation states are able to collect taxes and self-develop. But if in a unitary state, when a democratic outcome does not favor the ruling party, they therefore use the control of the central government to dilapidate economically and engage in a financial and economic genocide of certain population groups, that would be responded upon in preponderance to the destruction intended by whoever intends such destruction. So the COVID-19 has actually not created a massive problem. It's the lockdown, the response to COVID-19, irrationally locking down the country, locking down businesses, creating a combustible situation for many of the corporates that has created the loss of income, loss of opportunity. So what I'm saying is, as a responsible political party, we have been screaming, we have been shouting, we have been complaining. We now have to be grown men and women to recognize that we have to sit and engage with the ruling party and its government in a responsible and sensible way, in which all of us collectively guarantee the peace and stability of the country, guarantee the smooth running of the administration of the affairs of the state, and ensure that we recognize that whichever color somebody chose, we are one Namibian family. I think that's important, that we recognize it. Elections come and go, but Namibians remain in the circumstances they were found before the elections. Idea is to change lives of people after election. And so, in the administration, we do not need to be antagonistic toward each other. May I also make one little bit, maybe not a controversial point, but one glaringly obvious point. There is one political party that registered recently, whose leader got about allegedly 30% of the presidential votes last year. When they registered their political party, they went down, I think, to 21%. They are, in terms of numbers, said to be the second largest. That's one way of looking at it. We are, of course, the party that impacts the balance of power, and that's the more important part. who impacts the balance of power, who sits at National Council, who sits at National Assembly, who controls regions, who controls local authority. That's the more salient and more important issue, even discursively, to be engaged upon. Now, when you look at those that voted for SWAPO, it's the rural folk. It's the ones in informal settlement. It is the ones that don't have jobs, that are hungry, that are disenfranchised. Who voted for LPM? It's the ones in informal settlements, the ones that are hungry, the ones that are disenfranchised. In other words, there is convergence in terms of those that voted for the ruling party and those that voted for LPM. In terms of the class issues, in terms of the economic issues, there is convergence. It makes sense politically, therefore, for the ruling party to work with us, and it makes sense for LPM to work with the ruling party. It does not mean that we will be in a coalition with the ruling party. Don't stretch the analysis here. It means that there are areas where we can sit down and agree and work together, and where we can work together, we shouldn't pretend that our interests converge. Where we cannot agree, we shouldn't pretend that there is no agreement. This is all I'm saying. That when you emerge to the point of governance, what you have is the interest of the people, not the egos of political leaders, not the egos of political parties, the interest of the ordinary Namibian child, ordinary Namibian. That's what is determining the outcomes of the engagements. Henny?
No, it's fine. I think Sakius.
I had a question now.
Yeah, Okoto also, Sakius and Okoto. Yeah. Yes, Okoto, you will start.
My name is Obito Greg, I write for Republican. I've got two questions. One, you did make reference to the laws that govern regional and local housing, regional and local government. I just wanted to know your take on the Urban and Rural Planning Act, which the government was busy trying to get adopted into law, and which would have changed that sphere significantly had they been able to do so up to now. Whether you like it or don't like it, will support it or stand against it. And then my other question regards Stampriquis, Marital, Rural, and I think it's Arab, where ECN said that it is engaging with the parties and trying to look for some kind of a solution. Have you guys reached any kind of agreement, or what is your stance in that regard? Thank you very much.
My sister?
Oh, no, mine was on the coalition. He touched on it.
All right. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I had a question on one important issue that we've been mentioning in Parliament, and that's the issue of... No, I was introduced already. My name is Agil Sikela, from the Namibian.
Yeah. Are you not a unionist?
Not
you are not a...
Not in this cover.
Oh, all right. I thought you were a politician.
No, my question is on the one important issue that the leader of LPM has been touching on in Parliament, and that's the issue of decentralization. And you partly spoke about it when you answered Kelvin's question. So my question basically is that we have issues, we have had experiences, for example, in Rehoboth and other local authorities where a minister appointed in Parliament just basically intervenes and say this is not right and this is not good. So how do you plan on delivering on the promises that you've made? Of course, bearing in mind that most regional councils and local authorities that are smaller than Windhoek get money from the central government.
Yeah.
And how do you perhaps maybe plan to influence the change of laws maybe or legislation that govern these local authorities?
Sakis, repeat that again.
Yeah, no, I'm saying
change of laws.
Yeah, change of laws, yes.
How to influence it?
Yeah, to influence the change of laws, to take power from central government and back to the regional councils and local authorities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Daniel? Oh.
Okay, let me start with you. That act we'll have to consider in the totality of what the actual conditions are of the people. You know, even in terms of boundaries, why would Dordabes, for instance, not be part of the city of Windhoek if Groothoek is part of the city of Windhoek? Things like that, for instance. But it's something that we look forward to engage. Remember, guys, you can go and look at our history so far. Where we could give commentary in a positive fashion to SWAPO, we have done that. Where we would disagree with them, we have done that. And so that should allow a thorough engagement and a sense of maturity to prevail. I think for everybody, this is a new space that we are in. And SWAPO also doesn't know how to conduct itself, perhaps, and other political parties also do not know how to conduct themselves, because, you know, even in Gobabis, you have 4 political platforms that must form a coalition. And SWAPO is running after one, the Nudo person, to get support. But it's not just the formation of coalitions, will it hold? Will it hold? Will interests of individuals not dictate eventually? And if a person defy their party, would they be recalled, as we are planning to do in our own system and so on? So the Urban and Regional Development Act, I think, is so important that it has to be opened up for a greater discussion and debate, and we look forward to engage in those debates. On Stambri, you know the question, I saw one of the SWAPO guys who have little understanding of the law speaking about this matter of Stambri. Let's just look at Stambri. Stambri, we win that constituency hands down, sleeping, playing in the field without even doing anything. Hands down. Hands down. By far, no one can catch up to us. There is a problem with a mobile station where instead of regional ballot papers given, local authority ballot papers were given. Now, any problem that occurs within the electoral system must be material in order to be considered as sufficient for review and so on. But that's not where, in terms of a court process, the inquiry would end. The court process would ask, first, if the error that ECN made, if it was material, that would be the first one, and if that question is answered, yes, it is a material error, the second probe that a court will look at is, did that material mistake have a material impact on the outcome of elections? Our assessment is no. No. Even if we cancel that mobile station and say, let's leave it outside the sphere of those that should be counted, we will still hands down win that constituency.
Period.
Even if we say, let's count it, no one will catch up to us, even if they get 300 votes. And it's never a mobile station of 300 votes. So for us,
donate those.
and this is this is a careful argument that we are making, and I hope that ECN is listening, because we are going to see our lawyers tomorrow.
Yes.
They have not consulted us. They claim that they are consulting stakeholders. Maybe they are consulting other stakeholders. They have never consulted us.
Yes.
If you look at Wolfish Bay, I was in Wolfish Bay the Monday where there was special voting. Not a single ballot arrived for Wolfish Bay special elections for local authorities. Not a single one. In other words, in Wolfish Bay, for special elections, there was no single vote cast for local authority. Is that material? Absolutely. Does it materially impact the votes cast? Probably. Has the ECN said they are going to do a rerun?
Nope.
No. Very interesting. Why? We go to Oshimbinde, which is something that will take to court. Our people of about 200 arrived before 9 o'clock in a station, a polling station, got into the venue. And when they got on time into the venue to vote, ballot papers were not available. The ECN said, hold on, wait, ballot papers are not available. You can't cast your votes now. They drove 12 kilometers to fetch the ballot papers. But for some reason, in Oshimbinde only, in this election, It takes 3 hours to drive 12 kilometers to get ballot papers to vote. In other words, 200 of our people, known LPM members, were cut out from voting for LPM. Is it material? Absolutely. The win of SWAPO in Oshimbinde was about 500.
911.
Exactly.
Total.
Yeah.
Total.
Yeah.
Yes. We would have made up with those 200 to catch up to any other political party for had those votes been cast. There were other instances where one official took the votes of some of the, I think the Ovashimba,
Washimba and the San community.
and the San communities, and voted
On their behalf.
on their behalf in Oshimbinde, claiming that these are his people. Is that a material error? Yes. Does it have a material impact? Absolutely. Why is ECN not talking of a possible rerun of such instances? In Kwes and Arwap, the constituency is fine. The issue is the local authority. The local authority in Kwes and Arwap did not have NEF on the ballot paper. The ECN decided to stop the elections. Is that material? Probably. Should it be redone? Probably. But why is it that essentially in areas where LPM won, the first ones to announce a possible rerun are SWAPO Central Committee members? And ECN follows with what is likely seemingly a leaning toward that preponderance of probability instead of saying we are not likely to go for rerun or anything of the sort. Remember here, there are cost implications to redo a constituency for all of us, including ECN, the taxpayers, in Wakanas, Marindal Rural, huge constituency. There are cost implications in Wolfish Bay, in Oshimbinde, everywhere. When our constituency council in Keetmanshoop Urban passed on, ECN, within the realm of the law, was supposed to conduct an election. But they made a strong argument that there is a cost implication. Of course, there was also the issue of days. But strictly speaking, the days were immaterial. They themselves decided, guys, come on, let logic prevail. We said, okay, fine. But they said, in a small constituency that includes Noordhoek, Westdene, a little bit of town, Zeeplaat, small. They said it's going to be 1 million. Therefore, let's not do a by-election in Keetmans. Suddenly, on the instructions of SWAPO, they want to do reruns in areas where LPM won. Very interesting. Should we allow it? Certainly not. We must then also talk of doing reruns in Wolfish Bay, Oshimbinde. Then also, by the way, in West Dominga, John Bandeni, all constituency boundaries are set only by one institution. It's called the Delimitations Commission. No other authority has the power to decide how boundaries look like. When we were contesting for John Bandeni, our colleagues took the map, and John Bandeni excludes Umbili suburb. Doesn't have it on the map. It remains a constituency of another area. For the purposes of John Bandeni, in order for SWAPO to win, suddenly they included Umbili in John Bandeni constituency. We are taking that up with the lawyers. So the question comes, what I was asking you, colleague here from with the jacket here. In John Bandeni, was there a material problem, a material error? Yes. In including Umbili, yes. Did it materially influence the outcome of elections? Yes. Why? Because after colleague, my leader there, Dominga Ndala, successfully defeated the candidate in all constituencies of John Bandeni, rather in all polling stations, she lost with a 200 margin. Where did SWAPO get the 200 margin? In Umbili. So why are we not talking as ECN of a rerun? You know what the response is they gave her? Wait until everything is gazetted and then you can complain. Gazetting means until everything is approved, finalized, finished, go home. Then you can complain. That is the type of snakes and things that we are dealing with here. But maybe I must withdraw that. It's not good to call other people snakes. I withdraw that unconditionally. We should behave properly. We are now the second largest political party. We have regions and areas that we are governing. One of the issues that you are touching, decentralization, I think one of the first things that any reasonable president should be doing now is to remove both governors from Hardap and Karas.
Yes.
So that we appoint through him our people there. Because you can't have the overall majority of people moving with a vision of one political party, LPM, and the governor imposed by a political party whose vision and values and political message was rejected by the people. So our plea and request to President Kengobe is, let's engage so that we can give you the names of the two governors that we want to be appointed in Karas and Hamda. That is one of the ways that we must look at. Secondly, in terms of Local and Regional Authorities Act, you are correct. The unilateral powers that a minister has is completely irrational and unconstitutional. As it was done in Rehoboth, I think in Omaruru, also in Okahanja, these ministerial representatives are a problem that does not actually resolve anything. If you carefully look at the success rate of ministerial representatives in terms of getting investment going, in terms of improving administration, in terms of getting the real accounts and audits done, these representatives of the ministers have not been something that you should admire. It has been a failure of democracy, a failure of laws, and it's something that we must look at. Now, how do we influence Sakius correctly, as you're asking, the change of laws? Well, you engage people. You engage people, and that's what I'm saying. If the ruling party is serious in terms of governance and getting delivery of services to the people expedited in a proper way, we have to engage, and we have to say to each other, look, perhaps the law here, there, let's improve it like this and so on. It has to be, Sakius, a give and take 5 years that we're entering into. And no one is more supreme than the other, not to give or not to take. We have to engage. This is really the essence of democracy and so on. I think I've answered all of the questions that you colleagues have.
Yes? Maybe just one question. Perhaps just to clarify, good afternoon, my name is Edward from Nampa. Just to clarify LPM's position clearly on possible coalitions. Because I saw over the weekend a party like PDM made it very clear that they cannot enter into any coalition or cooperation whatsoever with SWAPO. Because according to them, SWAPO is this monster that has robbed the nation of development and progress and all those other things. But the LPM here, you seem to be saying you are willing and you are open to work with the ruling party and other like-minded organizations like the LPM.